President Buhari and other African leaders seek repatriation of stolen funds. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says he's ready to waive his immunity to defend himself. Vanguard newspaper apologizes over 90 billion naira fake news. In international news, Britain's demand Boris Johnson gets UK out of the European Union now, with or without a deal. And in sport, US, France, 55 other countries prepare ahead of 2019 Lagos Open.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammadu Buhari has joined other African leaders in calling for unconditional repatriation of funds stolen and transferred abroad from the continent. The president made this call at the high-level event on illicit financial flows held on the sidelines of the ongoing 74th United Nations General Assembly in New York. The theme of the event was promotion of international cooperation to combat illicit financial flows and strengthen good practices on asset recovery and return to foster sustainable development. President Buhari said in his address, any lasting solution to the challenges would require international cooperation and coordination. Ethiopian and Zambian presidents Silwork Zewedi and Edgar Lungu highlighted lack of harmonization in the legal and institutional frameworks and ineffective coordination among different jurisdictions as major challenges faced by African governments in effectively tackling illicit flows. President of the UN General Assembly, Ambassador Tijani Mohamed Bandeh, pledged the support of the UN organ to member states and organizations seeking the return of stolen money hidden abroad. It had been reported that at least $50 billion in illicit financial flows goes out of Africa annually. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has reacted to news making rounds that he took 90 billion naira from the Federal Inland Revenue Service to fund the 2019 general elections. The allegation was made by a former Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, Timmy Frank. The Vice President says if matters get worse, he would waive his constitutional immunity to pave the way for a spirited legal fight. The Federal Inland Revenue Service had refuted claims that it provided 90 billion naira to the Vice President during this year's election campaign of the All Progressives Congress. Vanguard newspapers has also apologized to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo over a report on this matter published on its website on Wednesday. The federal government is doing everything to avoid paying nearly $10 billion to Process and Industrial Development Limited, a Virgin Islands-based British engineering firm. A United Kingdom court on Thursday has granted the federal government leave to appeal against the award and enforcement of the judgments that asked Process and Industrial Development Limited to seize $9.5 billion in Nigerian assets. Application for stay of execution is currently being considered. Nigeria had received a legal hiding after a UK court awarded the company the billions of dollars judgment debt. The ruling has generated significant attention in both domestic and international media as the judgment represents 1/5 of the country's foreign reserves. Although primary education in Nigeria is officially free and compulsory, at least 10.5 million children between 5 and 14 years of age are not in school. In the north, the picture is even bleaker with a net attendance rate of just more than half. Getting out of school children back in poses a massive challenge, but an education tech company is working its charm to make that possible. Deji Partners tells us more.
Despite the fact that basic education is officially free and compulsory in Nigeria, it is not strange to see children on the streets during school hours. For some, the situation is compounded by language barriers and lack of written literacy skills. But an education tech startup has now come to the rescue through the use of its digital pen and talking books. The Mavis pen and book have audio capabilities, and this is how it works.
ina zaune a Yola da Turanci Binta ta ce I live in Yola.
Mavis Computel had originally set out to bridge the performance gap in language learning before including basic education into the mix.
We started with our first book, which uses Hausa to teach English. Since then, we've added more books. We currently have about 51 books. So we have books for using Hausa to teach English, for learning Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, French, Spanish, Arabic. We now have even the core education series for using English with phonics for primary 1 to 4, and then math as well.
The unique approach also helps block shortages in the area of funding and manpower.
You can liken it to a textbook that talks. So in places where you don't have enough teachers, or even in communities where you have few teachers that may not be so skilled, it helps make their work easier. So the children learn in small groups, 3, 4 in a group, and it encourages group participatory learning. And we've seen that has tremendous benefits for the children.
So far, the company has been able to reach out to at least 18,000 pupils in over 150 schools across the country, courtesy of funding from international development bodies and some state governments. And that is enough motivation for the company to carry on.
We've done projects funded by DFID, that is the UK government, and even some state governments like Borno State and some others as well. So from interventions we've done, we've seen kids perform about 37% better than children in other public or private schools nearby. So the results have been encouraging.
This classroom has fully adopted Mavi's learning approach, and the classroom teacher shares some of the reviews from parents.
Many of the parents come to us and tell us their children are now reading, and then children in primary 2 can now find words in the dictionary on their own.
Going by the current acceptance rate, Mavis Computel hopes to do much more on the African continent.
Our goal is that in the next 2 to 3 years, we should have reached close to 1 million children across the country, and then at some point we plan to expand to other African nations as well.
The use of information communication technology has seen to improved education delivery globally. To keep up with the pace, the Nigerian education sector will require more government and donor-driven interventions like this one.
Coming up, African news. Liberia's medical workers strike bites hard at the sick and patients in the country. And later, international news. Britain's demand Prime Minister Boris Johnson get them out of the European Union now, with or without deal.
You are watching ANN.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place, but nobody answers me. Auntie Carrie just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. The ongoing medical workers' strike in Liberia has paralyzed the already faltering healthcare system. Thousands of patients are left without care, and the country's biggest hospitals are in disarray. Government doctors, nurses, and other medical staff are protesting against low wages, delayed payments, and poor working conditions that include shortages of crucial equipment and regular electricity blackouts. Union officials say they have been negotiating with the government for 3 months before going on strike. They also say they plan to continue the industrial action until the government addresses their demands. Meanwhile, Liberia's Finance Minister Samuel Dwyer has said during a press conference on Monday that the government was doing everything possible to clear up backlogged salary payments since August, and that health workers should return to their post while the government negotiates with union leadership. Authorities in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the World Health Organization, WHO, says they are targeting at least 1 million children across the country for vaccination in a little more than a week. This is a later stage in an emergency vaccination campaign to combat a measles outbreak that has killed more than 3,500 persons this year. The World Health Organization describes the measles epidemic in DR Congo as the largest and fastest moving in the world. It is alleged to have killed more Congolese people this year than Ebola. WHO says lack of routine access to vaccinations and healthcare has contributed to the problem. A new comprehensive health insurance scheme has been launched and is fully operational in Egypt. Every Egyptian is covered by the new scheme, and the state will provide for those who are unable to afford the price of treatment. The cabinet has even approved a system for citizens to receive treatment abroad if it is impossible at home.
The city of Port Said is home to about 1 million people. It's the first phase of the new health insurance program applied by the government.
The comprehensive health insurance program covers all types of treatments, medication and hospitalization for all Egyptians, whether rich or poor, free of charge. And if there is no treatment in Egypt for a certain illness, the patient will be treated abroad free of charge. To ensure good service, there has been a major upgrade in the infrastructure of the medical sector.
A strong infrastructure has been put in place to complement the new health insurance system. It includes 7 new hospitals out of 10 and 25 new medical centers out of an expected 35 in Port Said. Procedures to register are simple and fast.
There is a nominal registration fee to apply plus the IDs of the family members because the insurance is not for individuals only but families. For those who cannot afford the registration fees, they will be fully subsidized by the government. They will pay nothing.
In only just over a month, 55% of Port Said residents have applied. That's about 500,000 people.
My daughter had an open heart operation. It was done by Samak Yakub's team. The operation went very well and the service is excellent, and we paid nothing.
Hospitals in Port Said have now become of the highest quality. All of them, including the old Nasser Hospital.
Port Said is the first city to adopt the health insurance program. It will then be applied in another 5 cities and should completely cover the whole country in 10 years.
A landslide at a gold mine in Chad, close to the border with Libya, had claimed at least 30 lives. Defense Minister Mohamed Abali Saleh says the mine caved in early on Tuesday at Kuribagudu in the Tebesti region, home to many unlicensed gold mines. News of the accident did not come out quickly because of the state of emergency that is in place because of insecurity and the remoteness of the area.
When we return, international news. Britain's demand Prime Minister Boris Johnson get them out of the European Union now, with or without deal. And later, sports. 240 players from 57 countries set for 2019 Lagos Open Tennis.
You are watching ANN.
Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports.
We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website, annafrica.net, and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In international stories, Israel's president has asked Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to form a new government after power-sharing talks with his strongest rival, Benny Gantz, collapsed. Netanyahu, leader of the right-wing Likud party, still has no clear path to a fifth term after emerging from a second election this year, short of a parliamentary majority.
Benjamin Netanyahu has a total of 42 days to form a government. He didn't succeed in that allotted time 6 months ago. Now Mr. Netanyahu is calling to form a broad unity government with his political rival. But Benny Gantz has repeatedly said he will not share a rotating government with a prime minister who stands to be indicted on criminal charges. Netanyahu could be indicted for corruption. A preliminary hearing starts in early October. After Israel's president announced his choice of Netanyahu for forming the next government, Gantz said he also supports a broad unity government. So far, negotiations to form a broad coalition government between Gantz's Blue and White Party and Netanyahu's Likud have failed. Local analysts speculate Benjamin Netanyahu may relinquish his opportunity to form a government, and Israelis may find themselves at the polls yet again in early 2020.
India has unveiled a $20 billion package of corporate tax cuts to revive economic growth. The finance minister has set corporate tax rates to the lowest levels in India's post-independence history to lift the economy out of its deepest nosedive in 6 years. The country hopes this move would improve India's appeal to foreign investors.
To deal with economic slowdown, the Indian government slashed corporate tax for domestic companies from 30% to 22%, and for new entrants, it has been brought down to 15%. The stock markets have been upward since the announcement on 20th September.
I think it's a very positive move. It's a significant tax break, and I think that's very important. It revives, in some sense, the sentiments. And I think for companies like us who are spending a lot on capital expenditure and also trying to deleverage at the same time, moves like this really help us.
This is going to be enabling, more demand. This is definitely uplifts the mood of the people. And there is a certain amount of buoyancy in the economy, and it's a positive, it's a step in the positive direction. So I'm sure it will help.
The reasons for continuing deceleration of the Indian economy have been cited as less demand by individuals and reduction in investment by corporates. The aim of the tax cut is to boost investment by private sector.
It's a matter of time only. As I said, that these measures will start showing the results from the next month onward itself. And I'm quite confident that if the entire industry improves, the steel industry has to improve in the time to come.
Economists believe that this step will have a medium to long-term impact, and the companies will start investing only after they have run through their excess capacity. They suspect that it will be the foreign investors who would move in fast.
They are coming in as a new player in the market. So for them, a reduction in the cost of capital works much better for them to take a decision. So does this create space for startups also.
After this tax cut, India has become a competitive investment destination as the rates are now lower than in China and most South Asian countries.
Brexit news is getting hotter by the day, especially now that the drop-dead date is 35 days away. Parliament is back and speculations is rife about what is next in the Brexit mess.
Some options open to the Prime Minister is to ask MPs to vote for a third time to allow a general election to be held. He would need 434 MPs to support the vote for such an election to hold. The sudden and unexpected resumption of Parliament after the Supreme Court ruled prorogation unlawful has created a heated environment in the Commons. Speaker John Becker called the culture in the Commons on Wednesday toxic and that it was worse than any he had known in his 22 years in the House. One good news for Boris Johnson, though, is that the British public wants him to get Britain out of the European Union as soon as possible, with or without a deal. In a new poll released on Tuesday, 60% said the country should be taken out of the EU at the earliest opportunity. Almost 50% said that should be done with or without a deal on October the 31st. Only 37% said the UK should remain in the bloc. Now let's analyze the American politics of today. U.S. President Donald Trump's road to re-election next year may have become more complicated now, with the decision by Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, to launch an impeachment inquiry. Before this move, Trump was sitting on an approval rating in the range of only 40%, a much weaker position for re-election than most incumbent presidents. He was counting on a strong economy and loyal supporters to overcome what would await him on Election Day next year. It is expected there would be a tremendous Democratic turnout to vote next year, a turnout that would be intent on sacking him and denying him of a second term. Well, even the economic hope has been crumbling lately, as warning signs have created some uncertainty about the president's re-election prospects. Now this, an impeachment inquiry, which focuses on Trump's efforts in a phone call to pressure Ukraine's president to investigate the son of his political rival, Joe Biden. Four Democratic House Committee chairmen investigating the matter have described the transcript of the call released by the White House on Wednesday as unambiguous, damning, and shocking abuse of the office of the presidency for personal political gain. Trump denies he did anything wrong. He says that this impeachment probe would help him win a second term. Analysts predict that the highly partisan nature of an impeachment inquiry which further cements the polarized political divide in the country. Trump has become the fourth president to be the subject of an impeachment inquiry, following Andrew Johnson in 1868, Richard Nixon in 1974, and Bill Clinton in 1998. Up next, sports. 240 players from 57 countries set for 2019 Lagos Open Tennis. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit. We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. The city of Lagos is set to play host to more than 200 players from 57 countries in this year's Lagos Open Tennis Championships. Those players have signified interest in the 2019 Lagos Open Tennis, which will scheduled for next month. The Lagos Open, which before the 2018 edition was known as the Governor's Cup Lagos Tennis, is an annual event. The International Tennis Federation explains that the 240 players consist of 133 for the men's singles and doubles event and 107 players for the women's singles and doubles during the ITF World Tour in Lagos, one of the emerging megacities of the world. Sebastian Coe will remain president of the International Association of Athletics Federation for another 4 years after being re-elected unanimously with 203 votes on Wednesday. Before the election, the Congress had voted 164 to 30 in favor of the decision to extend Russia's suspension from the IAAF, a sanction which hits the country for consequence for a widespread state-supported doping scandal means Russia cannot compete on the return flag. Huge consequence of dishonesty. That is CNN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a pleasant evening.